Hello. Love the
How
sweater.
are you? Thanks. I made it. Oh.
You said something about colors and racism, so I feel like you have to go into that more now.
Yeah, cameras. Cameras are racist. They were like the lenses and stuff were made off of some I don't know if it was Shirley Temple, but some Shirley card. So it's not equipped for this. So when I was making this sweater, I was like, "Oh, this is great. I can wear this sweater," because I realized that this issue I've had with the camera is offset if I put on something white or I hold a white notebook or something, then it's like, "Oh, I see you now," with you when you have something white on or very light in front of it. And these are just part of the things that we have
See,
to
and like
consider.
white people don't think about this stuff. White people don't think about like camera lenses were developed for white people. You know what? Microaggression is really effing bothering me right now.
What?
In in talk to text, it automatically capitalizes white and it does not capitalize black. And I'm
Really?
like, "This is such a microaggression. I know this
Yeah.
was done on purpose by, like, white tech boys." And I'm like, I'm so worried about it, right? Because, like, that's gonna make me look like a white feminist real fast.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it bothers me just because it's something I have to look out for so much. Like, I'm not even the one being marginalized in this microaggression. But it's
Right,
just
but the
like,
awareness
yeah, I don't think
changes.
people have the awareness.
No, and that's why it's like people get confused about privilege or not confused, but uncomfortable because but what a privilege is a lack of knowing something. That's why I've called it an ignorance, because it's not having to experience something and not having to think about it. So male privilege of not having to think about going out. What time is it? Is it dark? They're just like, do I want to? So they don't have to think about that. They don't have to think about where their keys in their hands or whatever. And you don't know that you don't have and then to argue it and to be like, "No, I don't have this privilege." You're like, "Wait, that so."
So this is the conversation I've been having as like my own homework for the last week or two has been, this week it was some woman being like, I was in the army in 1987 and I was one of two only white women in my platoon and there was no racism. And I was just like,
Like, "Why are you
like
talking?
why
what was
why
this
are
for?"
you I don't understand. And I don't think I've ever understood like why white people think they get a vote on what is racist.
So okay, so because it's like they include and exclude themselves at the same time all the time by one speaking, but then speaking as if they are objective and some other type, right? Like, there's some raceless being. I just saw a video from a mutual of mine who was like, I she was like, "I'm losing my mind," and I had a feeling, and I saw white women were adjacent to it. She was like, she was curious about white people and tanning and the privilege of tanning and just, like, about that, which I could go into depths about, one, my naivete that I even worked at a tanning salon and thought that wouldn't be weird. 'Cause I was that, whatever. So, she's going like, "I am so annoyed because there's no o it's not that there's overt racism, which happens when you talk about whiteness and white privilege. It's all of these white women talking to me about, 1, why they tan, because what she wanted to do is say, "I went on live, I talked to you guys about why you tan. These were the top reasons, but the biggest reason was I don't know." And that's a privilege, to just not even think about why people tan. Why white people tan, but she's going like, there's one group saying, "I would never, I embrace my pale skin. I don't tan." And the other group is going, "I tan because, I go outside and it just happens." And she was like, "I'm losing sight of what my own point was because there's just white women with paragraphs talking about their skin problems and acne and all this makes me skinnier and stuff." And she's like, it's just interesting to watch. Now this is like the third instance I can see outside of myself of a black woman trying to have a conversation about something white women do and being
Yeah.
almost driven mad by this specific thing white women do. I don't that they just explain. It's like
It's like
mansplaining, but
it
whitesplaining.
also feels like the intentional missing of the point. Like, this has happened to me with the blonde stuff, where I don't know if I've
Mhm,
told you
mhm.
about this, but they try to get me now that I do the colors. They try to be like, oh, and do you bleach your hair for that first? Or is that just how it comes out? And I can't, like, I never said there was anything, like, any reason why you could not
Gotcha,
dye your hair
gotcha.
blonde, you know? Like, it's just, but it's so silly. Like, which
And but
obviously
the other one
racism is,
was about the
but
blonde
like,
too. Like, the other
with the
experience
what?
I saw was a black woman saying, you know, "White women and blonde hair," but even if you don't choose, so she was saying, "Okay, now there's all the women in the comments saying, 'I don't. I believe I color it this color.'" And she was saying, "Okay, but let's take it a step further. Have you what do you have against your color? Like, what is it?" She was genuinely trying to have this conversation
Yeah.
about white women and not just accepting themselves first and then,
And
you
I
know,
think
like,
that's an
what makes
important
you
conversation, right? Like,
Yes, well, they
I did not have my hair. I did not have my hair, my natural hair color from the age of 14
Mhm.
to the age of like, what, 33? I'm 38 now. I think I stopped dyeing it blonde 2 years ago. So 36. So for 20 something years, right? 22 years. I didn't even know what my hair color was. And in my mind, my hair color is awful. It's what they call mousy brown, because of
Yeah,
course there is
yeah,
a
what's that?
hierarchy in the way we talk about hair. But one of the things that really surprised me when I grew my hair out was like, I love my hair color. I like my natural hair color. Crazily enough, it suits me very well. And
Right. Yeah,
that was an important journey for me with
supposed
the
to be.
curly too.
Right,
And, coming
exactly.
out with like, now I can have my hair straight or curly. Now I can have my hair colored or natural. But like, I was not taught that in any way, shape, or form. Like, I was never taught appreciate your hair the way it comes out of your body, or your skin the color that it is naturally, or any of that. Like, I
Exactly.
literally, so I'm allergic to the sun, right? And so I have learned, especially in my 30s and almost 40s, like, I just basically never show my legs, because I want to say Americans of all forms, but it's probably still heavier on white Americans. Like, just feel like it's fine to make fun of people for having pasty legs. Like, that's just one of those things. It's like, oh, wow, you haven't seen the sun in forever. And the answer is no. I'm very carefully tend to guard myself from it because, again, the allergic not wanting to die thing. And it's one of those weird things that I'm like, nobody, like, why does everyone just feel like it's okay to comment on how pasty
The
someone's
second
legs
they
are?
can see something, and I'm confused,
And
you
so
know?
what? Yeah.
"Oh,
Well,
look.
because it doesn't look as good, right? Like, that's what we're taught.
Ooh, legs are a color." Mm. You know, I'm not understanding, like, what do people expect you to say after? Like, "Sorry? Explain yourself?"
I mean,
It's
yes. Like, it was a thing for me, right? So I was 19 and I was working at a restaurant where you were required to tan. So if you were a white person, you were required to tan.
Wow.
I Yeah, I mean, it was one of those little shorts restaurants, where we know it's
Wait,
all
th
about appearance.
but what if there were black people there?
They were tan. Like, you're not required to purchase a tanning subscription. You were just required to have a tan
Oh,
year
okay.
round. And I literally had to get a doctor's note to take to work, because what happened is I started getting all these white spots, and we found that in my specific situation, I believe that when you put Slovakian flavored humans in unmitigated sun exposure in Latin America for their childhoods, like, you have a 19-year-old who's now allergic to the sun. So I have been since then, like, basically always covering myself in the sun. I love the sun from Brazil, but I have to, like, guard against it. But yeah,
I don't.
it was a big deal that I was coming to work with the white pasty legs and not having that perfect tan. And I remember, like, it was a big deal to me too, and I had to, like 'cause also we were in Texas, which is very relevant if you think of the super blonde with the super tan skin, like, that's a
Yeah,
big Dallas thing, and I had to, like, constantly tell myself, like, it's not worth trading in a few more beauty points right now for, like, leathery skin when you're older or skin cancer when you're older, but, like,
yeah,
I had to untrain that out of my mind that, like, beauty for white women must include this, like, golden tan.
that's so weird. But at the same time, the whole thing is.
Not.
The whole thing
But at the
the
same
whole
time,
thing is
not. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. The whole, like,
Well, because I
Black
think
people
that's
know this.
part of the problem. That's part of the problem with it being a lie, right? Which is why, like, we chose white supremacy. We chose to say one skin color was the best, and we chose the
Yeah,
one that literally can't be outside for too long. Like,
right, right, right.
we
Yeah,
chose the
because
one
it's
that,
kept
like,
inside.
I think it's true that, like, long tan legs look better than white legs. And you know who has long tan legs? Generally not white women. Like, we did,
Yeah.
like, again, it's a lie, and that's why they gotta spend all their time chasing, like, I don't know, I just call it chasing
So
blondness now, like, this constant need to
but
have the
it's like an
perfect hair
idea.
and have nobody know that that's not your natural hair color,
Right,
and
that's what I'm saying.
just
It's an idea because it's
yeah.
different, like and it's the nothingness of it. It's the natural, "I woke up like this," but lying,
It's
gaslighting, not
yes,
like,
it's how much work it takes. I was just talking about this with my husband the other day, I forget why, but Holly Madison, who is from the Playboy
mhm,
Mansion, The Girls Next
play with it, yeah.
Door, she had famously said on the show, they said something, something, "You're beautiful," and she said, "I made myself beautiful." And everyone interpreted that as, oh, she had all this surgery. And she talks about it in her book where she's like, no, she is a little ADHD, just like us, girl from Alaska.
Uh-huh.
And she, and I think this conversation comes up a lot with like neurodivergent women who fit into the traditional pretty, where like making yourself look like the perfect whatever epitome of whatever you can get
This
becomes
one
one of the
wins.
special interests. And that was the thing for me. Like that's part of what I'm deconstructing, where like I naturally, every time I let my natural self peek out, it was either long undyed hair or short like Halle Berry haircut and much more casual, much more spunky, much more funny. But whenever I was trying to fit, it was spend so much time and so much labor to look like Barbie.
Yeah, but this invisible time and labor, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's something that is weaponized against Black women, and you think about it, because there's this thing that happened online where we said, next time a white woman asks you, "Oh my god, how long did that take?" It's like, tell them, sorry, there's a lot of sound. Tell them it took, as long as getting your hair dyed blonde. Y'all be in there for hours and hours and hours getting to a certain color, but for some reason, the labor and the time, we talk about it. You see it in how fine or how small the braids are, and, like, we're okay with that. Getting a wig installed and it being platinum blonde and, you knowing it's a wig is fine because we're honest, um, but then it's weaponized, like getting your nails done, getting your hair done, da, 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 da. It's dog whistles when you hear it talking about in the government and like, "Oh, your nails done." Because white women, but it's this, like, secretive thing like showering
Or like you're
or
never
being
at like
clean.
I get acrylic nails once a month. That's like my self-help thing to not tear my cuticles apart. And I've never had anyone point that out. Like how much time does that take? Or how much money do you spend on that? Like that's
Right.
never been a thing.
But it's always because it's something visible, it's just look, right? Just like the white legs, but it's systemic,
Yeah.
right? It's just
And
like,
even how
"Look what they're
much
doing."
I think of like how much it pisses men specifically off the get ready with me videos that are like
Mm,
not about showing you my process, just about taking back the time that I have to spend in front of the mirror putting on makeup. I'm going to talk to you about this other thing. And like it's the same with the knitting kind of. People get pissed off about where they're like misogynists will be like, "This is a serious topic. Can we not be having XYZ?" And it's like, "Well, no, the
Right.
point of this is to be like, I'm not giving all this time to the patriarchy, even if I have to." Because like you turn
Yeah.
around and it's like it's baked into everything because we don't
That's what people are making getting I think that's what you I don't think that's the general get ready with me consensus of this is fighting patriarchy. It's giving it feels a little Taylor Swifty to me that
Huh.
the get it because I think story times and get ready with me's are very different. I had a whole phase where I was going through
Okay.
this with because Black women tell stories. You have to be present to do a story, right? I don't know how I liked Get Ready With Me. I remember trying it, but realizing that's not really possible. I talk with my hands. I look at people when I talk to them. Like, it is very white, the "Get Ready With Me," the, like and because no one questions also, that's interesting, actually, because it kinda goes with the whole hair, nails thing. If we were doing "Get Ready With Me's," there'd be a lot of, "Oh, you spend money doing that, you spend time doing that, where are your
Yeah.
kids, where's this, where's that?"
I
I
also think that
like that
most of the
thinking,
creators I'm
but
watching are not white women. So when I'm seeing as, oh, they're talking about serious things and taking the time back, like I was inspired by that. But
yeah,
now that I think about it, like I don't
yeah,
follow a lot of white blonde women. So I'm not seeing the
right.
full picture of that.
And Get Ready With Me can be very consumery, when you see it kind of this and this and this and this and this, all just to tell a story where I'm like, I want to hear the story. But that's just like anything that can be commodified in this way, where I love listening to Black women tell a story. I learn something almost every time, even if there's something also about it is that they will make up words. I don't know if they know they're making up the word, they're saying something wrong. And zero part of me, by the way, wants to go in a comment and correct the word they said. So I just would like people to think about that. Zero. In fact, I usually love the word they make up. One woman kept saying initiated. And while that's not a word, I loved it so much. And I'll just find these words and I'm just like, but I knew what she meant. And it's not because you have people speaking from all different, types of places and stories. I listen to all types of stories. But in this consumerist white culture, which get ready with me videos, it's usually like they're not saying anything. But right, it depends on who you're listening to. It
No, that
really
makes
does.
perfect sense.
And they might just happen to be getting ready while talking. That's different than get ready with me. Like, let me give you the agenda and the talking points and the title of the video before I do it. Just say what you're saying. Especially on TikTok. Well, that's why I'm not there because it's just like, give me the what? And but I do love people talking. Like, I think sharing information and sharing stories is literally the point in how, we got here and stuff. It's just I'm always
Yeah.
looking a little deeper.
I mean,
But why?
but this is an interesting point of like the white women tendency to like take something that might be a little bit subversive and make it white or make it capitalisty or make it
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, like, it could like, and then it kinda turns and veers once it starts to become popular, and I think things that are popular aren't always good, but there is that association in capitalism. If it's popular, it's good. If it's good, it's gonna be popular. But that's just not true, especially in these institutions or industry settings on a platform where it's like, there's an algorithm, there's some behind the scenes thing where there's a whole purpose behind it. So, it's yeah, yeah. But in terms of like the blonde stuff, I do think this is how everything comes back to anti-blackness for me because when you talk about curly hair, that comes from not liking kinky hair or not having the representation of products for hair like this to then work its way back.
Yeah. And even like not being taught. Like I
Right.
think there's a deliberate amount of racism and control when white girls are not taught how to take care of curly hair. And so all you know is that your hair is frizzy and gross and you're supposed to look like those other white girls with the straight hair. And I keep like my kid has what looks like my hair and my husband's very straight hair, got married. So it's just like waves. It's very easy. And I keep
Mhm.
kind of like warning her and preparing her that, like, hey, very, very likely as you become a teenager, you are going to get curlier hair, and like we'll learn about it. We'll take care of it. Like I have been trying so hard, not always the right way, but trying so hard ever since she was born to like, because she had really curly hair and then it kind of straightened out, but to like teach her how to love her hair the way it comes out of her head so that she's
You
not
can just
in
do that
this.
by loving yours,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be always like, because I'm thinking about with my mom and stuff, and I've talked about this a bit, but, like, she didn't have to know and teach me, well, she couldn't, right? I used to just be mad at my mom for having curly hair, because how dare she? The other biracials with a straight-haired white, because I knew so many biracial parents. I had, or kids rather, and I was like, "Yeah, but that one has straight hair on the white side, and I did it, and that's why it's not fair, and that's why she doesn't have to get relaxers and I do." So there were still, like, all these levels to it. My mom kept her hair pretty short by the time we were really, like, doing stuff. I tell her how to do her hair now. She loves the pattern products, but it's you can't she couldn't teach me how to be a Black woman, right? Like, or proximity or how to love. She just kind of accepted whatever happened. "Oh, you're learning this thing with your hair? Oh, great." At a certain point, I had to
That's
be
it.
like, "All right, ma,
Yeah.
I got it. I'm gonna take it from here," because she tried. We did our best. And just accepting, if I tell her something racist happened, she would go, "No way." And I didn't realize that was a privilege I had, that, a white woman around me would just go, "No way," and listen
Accept.
to me.
Yeah.
And that was a privilege, right? So I didn't know that it was a privilege. And that's okay, and I really want to express that to people. It's like, we all get them. You only know the privilege when you find out someone doesn't have that experience or does have something different, where they have to explain to their mom why they can't say the N-word. I didn't know that could have been an experience I had. And what do I do with that information? I go and talk about it now, and I try to make sure other I don't know, I reduce it as much as I can. I'm not gonna argue, "No, it's not a privilege to be." That's such a silly thing to argue. In fact, people should be looking for their privileges because that's where your power lies and, like, how you survived this whole time. But,
It's,
yeah, you don't have to she
I'm
didn't come and be like, "Well, here's what you need to know about Blackness." It's crazy.
writing right now. I suppose I've officially announced it, so I can fascism in America. And I'm starting with my
Okay.
favorites, the Puritans.
Okay. So who are the Puritans? I've heard this name, but I don't know, like, which ones? I'm assuming they're white.
Yes, they were white. They were like a different set of people who didn't like the Church of England. So the Pilgrims broke away completely. The Puritans wanted to fix the system from the inside. And the Puritans are the ones that come over and they come up with City on a Hill, right? We are exceptional. They come up with universal education. We're going to give we're going to say everyone deserves school. Now, whether that was because they deserved it or whether that was because they wanted to indoctrinate the children. And the Puritans are the ones that had the witch hunts, right? The witch trials. And so the idea that they came in search of freedom of religion is false. They came in search of freedom to practice their religion. They would banish you in the middle of winter, which was a death sentence, if you were not observing the Sabbath. Like there was no concept of freedom of religion. It was literally called freedom
Right.
to obey. And, of the Puritans, it has been said that their gift to America was like the fear that somewhere somebody is having fun.
Right, right,
And you
right.
were not supposed to be having fun. And I think there's like, I forgot exactly why I got on this, but there is definitely this like absolute denial of anything that is kind of like fun or attractive or tastes good or sounds good. Like you are here to suffer and then die and work hard along the way. And oh, by the way, Jesus has already decided who's going to heaven, but work hard anyway, and out of this, we get this like,
Man, this white man go, "Uh-huh." They were like, "Don't worry." This white guy, he said,
yeah,
"What is with
yeah.
that was just a dude." Okay, I'm not gonna
I mean, also
he
think
was
that Jesus was a bit of a cult leader, but yeah,
that
definitely.
was
whitewashed, definitely.
They say, "Oh, he had 12." Once I heard this 12 disciples business. Oh, he had a team.
Yeah.
This
Oh,
one
yeah,
guy
yeah,
says,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
in the
I
name of
literally
this one
say
guy.
in I literally say in Culting of America that, like, anyone that tells you to quit your job and come follow them, like, is probably trying to get you into their cult, you know? But anyway, going back to,
Anyway, yeah,
the Puritans are essentially the fathers of America, right? They planted these seeds in the soil that turned into kind of the Constitution,
sorry.
and you can kind of this is kind of what I'm doing in this book, is kind of tracing white culture and showing that it's not a good story at all, right? It's like this cult came over here, planted the seeds of the fascism, and like
Because you said they're like the dads of the country, and then you're saying they're planting seeds, and so I'm just like, so who are they putting the seed in that made me appear? Excuse me, dad?
well, the white mothers, because white motherhood is
Exactly.
also a very important part of fascism, turns out.
I'm trying to get y'all to stop it. Cut it out. What is this? And when I talk about the corporation nation, and I realize, like, M&A, when they talk about mergers and acquisitions, I've labeled marriage and adoption because that is purchasing bodies, and
Yes,
corporation nation is buying bodies.
yes,
And so now I'm
yes.
on this whole thing. It's
And the
all
amount
bypassing
of
boundaries.
adoption and the amount of adoptions of children of color into these white cults is just horrific.
Questioning. And I did see a video that was amazing by someone, I think she was Ethiopian, but she said, "Black Americans are the ones I really need to thank because they're the ones who never question when I say I had a bad adoption." Like, Black Americans are like, "Yeah, sounds about white," you know? But everybody else, even people from that country or, because they were international, it's like, "It could have been worse, and the gratitude, and you should blah, 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 blah." If there is a social script of gratitude, absolutely not. So that toxic positivity is toxic, it's poisonous,
Just in
and
general,
yeah,
expecting your children to be grateful. And this goes back to the Puritans, by the way.
right,
Like, you owe
right,
gratitude for existing. And like,
right.
we try to be really intentional about this as parents coming from coercive control, that like our child did not ask to be born. She did not ask to be a prisoner in our house for 18 years, and like she gets as much of a say as she can rationally get at any point in time,
Yeah,
you know. And we try to be more aware of that like we chose to be here together. We, the adults, like we chose to live in this house by ourselves. Like we chose to have only one child. Like we might owe each other some gratitude sometimes. Like she does not. Like she gets to have a worse attitude because she didn't choose it, you know?
she
And
gets to have her own
so
feelings? That's
I
crazy.
wanted to tell you because I'm already, I already have the whole outline of this book and I already know like obviously I'm going to need to talk to you about so much stuff, but there's a chapter on that I want to write on the rebellion of joy. and
Mm,
and joy is resistance.
mhm.
Intentionally, as a white woman, taking up this super hot topic of like joy was literally surgically removed from the white experience. You are not allowed to have joy, and it's always been associated with blackness and otherness and joy and loud music. Did I tell you that my husband is from a town? It's on the border of Canada and like Seattle, and it's a town that doesn't allow dancing anywhere that serves alcohol.
No, I didn't know that, but I was like, "Is she about to say a Footloose?
It
Are you about to?"
literally, yes, yes. And it will not surprise you at all to know that that is where Donald Trump holds his rallies when he goes to Washington State.
Wait, so is he allowed to do these moves? I feel like that's what he does. I'm not exactly sure, but I think
But
it's something
like, I mean,
pointy.
I have been obsessed with how afraid white people are of dancing. And like, I'm going to get so into it in like,
Worst case scenario, we point and laugh. We're already doing it. You know, like, but I do think, oh my goodness. So I do think there is, so as we were talking about the joy is resistance thing last week too. And I think if there is with white women, there needs to be the acknowledgement of this is where Karen also has come from. Remember Barbecue Becky? I don't know if you remember this one. She was like one of the famous Karens with the sunglasses at the park and like a dark hoodie on. She's calling because the barbecuing and they're not using the right whatever permits charcoal and it's not supposed to be charcoal or whatever. And she's standing there on the phone, waits till the cop comes, then starts whatever, right? But that's on camera. Of course, nothing bad happens to her, but she's fine with this. But we just know her face. I don't know. She's probably still fine. But like the policing of joy outside does come from the internal
You
policing
just
of
gave me
personal
such a
joy.
good you just gave me such a good vignette. It's gonna be like being at a Brazilian churrasco, like a Brazilian barbecue versus being
Mhm.
at like an American. The first time I was invited to an American barbecue, I was literally like a white American barbecue. I was like,
I was
this
gonna
is
say,
like
what kind?
the most joyless,
Oh,
just yeah, like
yeah.
the food's not good. This is
No.
joyless. Why
Ooh,
is there mayonnaise on everything? Like,
right.
where's my
Potentially
actual
cat
meat?
hair.
Where's my chicken? Like, I just
Yeah, it's not great. Yeah,
and
I didn't know the whole thing
that
about
but
cat.
that's what I wanna talk about, because I'm spending a lot of time with this topic, and obviously you're helping me with it, thank you, of the, like, resistance is joy, joy is resistance, which is
Mhm,
true, but I think it has to be this very long, slow acknowledgement of understanding that, like, joy was taken from us and then
mhm.
demonized, and we don't know how to do it, and we have to get, like, completely out of whiteness. Like, whiteness is still dominated by
Right.
Puritanism
And
400
this
years later. There is still a
Jane.
fear that someone somewhere is having fun.
Right. And your fun, I remember writing a whole list of trying to figure out what is all games, but it's like beating and winning first place and dominating and raging after you've
It's fun
won.
with
And
rules. It's fun with
yeah,
rules.
but it's also not, right? It's
Even like
like
the dancing, right? The only way that white children tend
where?
to dance is as a competition. It's go get trained and then go compete and prove that
Make
you are
it
like really good at
countable.
this.
Yeah. No, bad stuff. But also, like the phrase "a barrel of laughs." I don't know if we talked about this. Where "barrel of laughs" comes from is that black people,
To laugh into a
enslaved
barrel.
people, were kidnapped and had to laugh into barrels. And it's we say, obviously it's not scientifically proven. A lot of times you'll see black people when we watch magic, especially, but something really funny happens, we run and laugh. There's also a lot to do with running, and just if you see black people running,
Yeah.
they don't ask no questions. That's a go-to. You run, but like that's
And
community and
meanwhile,
joy
let
and
me tell
everything.
you, my kid, who's almost 10, says to my husband just the other day, like, "Mommy never laughs out loud." Like, I never see her laugh out loud. And,
Mm,
like, this has consistently been a thing in my life. Like, when I was 16, a boy invited me to a concert, Lincoln Park, uh, speaking of whiteness, uh and I just sat there and watched the concert, and he was, like, so creeped out. He didn't wanna talk to me anymore afterwards because he was just like, "What?" I I it's hard for
did you know it?
me to, like Huh?
Did you know Linkin Park music?
Some of the music, and he would, like, keep trying to get me to just, like, stand up and kind of just, like, white person rock out, but still, like, I didn't even have that. I was just like, "I'm just gonna sit here and watch."
Yeah, you
And
weren't.
it's
Yeah,
like I have a very I mean, it's something I work on now. Now, of course, I'm actively working on times I can laugh with her because, I got that feedback, but, you know,
to
about
laugh
times
with
I
her, you
laugh
said.
with my daughter, like, I actually try to remember and focus on that, and put ourselves in genuine positions of, like, play and laughing. But it's just like and I've always said that, though, I'm just not a laugh out loud person. Like, it's and it took me a long time to realize that's because, yeah, like, I every emotion was regulated. Like, you better not laugh at the wrong thing even, right? And
Mhm.
if you think about,
Yeah,
I'm
I've heard
growing up in a
this
world of such
over-regulating.
control, but also of ridiculous theories, and you wanna be careful what you laugh at, you know?
So, maybe things aren't that funny. You laugh with me sometimes. right? Like, whiteness ain't
Yep.
funny. Your joke
Yeah.
their jokes
Yeah.
aren't funny. And I think what funny is and what jokes are has been so like, I don't even know anymore, right? Like, I know people laugh at the things that I say, and then, like, someone said it's like observational humor. They say, "Your observational humor is stopping it." And I get it, and I understand why people are laughing, but, like, I'm just pointing things out. And this is interesting. I enjoy it, though. But I remember the first time that I said something that came into my brain and people laughed around me, and I was like, "I can do this. I can just say people will get it maybe?" And they were my friends, and one of my friends Christina was one of them. It was like the whole thing with the deer, and I was like, "Sorry about your mom," about Bambi, and it was dark and whatever. And I remember being like, they thought it was funny. Awesome. But I was a very serious kid, my mom says. I'm very serious.
You
But
were?
when things are serious, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but things felt very serious, I guess, you know. My mom has had MS since I was like 10 or 11 and, single mother and there's all this other stuff, life. And younger, eldest daughter and all that. But
I
going
mean, that's
with,
also a very that's one of the very real things about having a parent that is sick and or dying while you are a teenager or a child is like that guilt related to feeling joy.
mhm.
And we have some kids now whose mom has cancer, and I'm like always trying to pay attention to that, like that they're just like getting an opportunity to go out there and still have joy and not feel guilty about it. And that's basically the thing, right? That in high control environments, which at this point I kind of just think white America is a high control environment. And
Yeah,
it's like you're not supposed to be having fun. You're not supposed to be idle. I
yeah,
think I've mentioned this before, but when I left the cult, like, I would not watch television. I would watch 1 hour of television once a week, and it was One Tree Hill, and I would be ironing my laundry during that time so that I could, like, justify the silliness of just watching a
yeah.
show.
And it's barely good, right?
And
And
it
even like the
right,
options you have, right, are
right.
like,
That stuff is not even good, but it was just, like, the idea that I could just sit down on a Tuesday afternoon and just watch TV for an hour, like, could not. Like, could not
right, like, and
justify
that's
that to myself as,
I
"What
realized
are you doing with your time?"
when I did cast, I did one book club. It's mostly all these are controlling, right? But like the iceberg of caste systems, I realized like it's always caste systems and then behavior, but all we look at is like behavior, but it's a format from the same thing. But I said this is like controlling community. Sorry. It's like controlling community, controlling consequences, and then controlling cultures, I feel like. But whiteness is just controlling cultures. Like, that's what you guys do is like, let me control that. Let me control as much as I can see. Your legs are pale. I'm going to
Why are you doing
control
that?
your thinking about it. And then now I'm going to make sure you think about that every time you look and whatever you're
Yeah.
going to wear. It's just like this
And
constant control.
this gets into and it's like the control through pointing out that you look a little different.
That's it.
And I think
It
that's
doesn't mean
something that's
anything.
so different about, like, white culture and non-white culture, where it's like people will give you a compliment. Like, when a Black woman gives me a compliment on something that I'm wearing that's out of the ordinary, that feels like a real compliment. When a white woman
Yeah.
gives me a compliment on it, it doesn't always feel like a real compliment, right? Sometimes it feels
Because
like
there's
she's actually
compliments.
trying to say, "That's an interesting choice," right? Or like, "Why are you wearing that?"
It's so different, and that's why, we say when a man compliments us, it's different than when a woman compliments us, right? And then similarly, if a Black woman compliments me on something versus if a white woman compliments me on something, also depends on what that thing is. When it's hair, when it's clothes, if it's a shirt that I've knit, it doesn't matter, you know? But if it's my hair, it matters. Oh, it matters. Because I'm scared. Once a white woman starts complimenting, it's like, it's okay if you use the P word, poofy, we're done now. And it's uncomfortable. You don't know, but you said poofy, and now I know you don't have any Black friends. I know you don't know. You're about to say something else weird, like, and it's not even weird. It's just this whole the thing that we were talking about before is like you're not saying anything racist, but you're saying, "Oh, my daughter has really curly hair, not like yours." Not as tight as yours, though. The always that, and I don't know. I yes, I am Black. Like, that's all I can think to say back. It's like when I worked at the tanning salon and people would say, "I wanna use whatever bed you're using." And I didn't know if they meant it, because sometimes they ask me what it's just those moments you don't know you're Black until some white people say some weird stuff. That's not true, like, I know I'm Black, but it's like racism isn't what you think it is. It's not this hatred, it's not the bones in your body, I don't have a racist bone in my body. It's not any of that, it's in your brain, not your bones,
It
and
doesn't come from your bones, turns out.
right, and it has nothing to do with even your it doesn't only impact you when Black people are around,
Yeah.
but it mostly
But it's
only
also
impacts Black people when white people are around.
the structuralness of it, right? Like, going
Right,
back to the camera thing, you know? Like,
right, and I can't even say, "Oh, it's because like, I think it every time. Every time it's, like, doing that weird thing with me, I'm like, "Racist." Mostly because I know that facts, but if someone was like, "Oh, I don't wanna hear about this," it's like having people complain about us talking about periods. "Oh, really? You're you're sick of hearing about it? Well,
I put a period
imagine
reference
having
in the
to endure it."
musical.
The what, periods?
I put a period reference in the musical, yeah, and it's
Nice.
during the soldier part too.
As they should, because are you uncomfortable?
Oh my god.
I'm gonna name a street after a gynecologist
Right to
and now never
comfort.
talk about it again. That's how I feel like I wish white women would just think like, what if men said this? Oh, it's just, oh, I don't even know what to say anymore. It's too much. I get scared I'm gonna offend a woman. Uh, that we're scared we're gonna die. So I don't care. Like I don't want to hear, but it takes time. And I think I've gotten some really nice comments because all of these episodes have been going on my Patreon now. And just having people say, like, hearing you 2 talk things through has helped me so much just with that, and it's like, "That's it. That's all."
Like, sometimes these rules are like a moratorium until you know more, you know? So, like, so my husband, right? He has a very strict rule that he does not comment on women's appearance. Right? And this is a good rule because he's at the beginning of deconstructing toxic masculinity and because he's a 43-year-old in college, right? Very good rule not to
Yeah,
comment on
safe.
women's appearances. Now, just last week, we were at a restaurant that we go to all of the time. I know this woman. I've given her lots of jewelry, and she was wearing her hair in a different way. And he was like, "Oh, Cindy, it looks really nice." And it was a perfectly normal, fine thing. And then she walked away, and he goes, "Oh my gosh, oh no, I broke my rule. Was that okay?" And I told him it was like I think in
It's
the
great.
beginning, like, for right now, like, I don't comment on Black women's hair, but, like, that might not have to be a rule for the rest of my life, you know? Like, that's, like, in the beginning, and then eventually, you don't need the rules anymore. I mean, this is honestly similar to what I said at the end of about to call it our book. At the end of our book, which is like, use these things as a guide until you know what you're doing, and then you just use yourself as the guide, you
Right.
know?
It's a great just barrier. It's like on the bowling things. Just put them up, and then eventually you might not need them anymore. It just sets you on the right course.
I still
But if
need them.
you have Yeah, and you know what? They're always gonna be an option, you know? When you get into a new environment, you go, "Let's put those back up. Let's just" quiet is the goal, and for me, it's like, yeah, I only read books by Black women. That's not necessarily true. I read a white lady book here and there, but it's and I got some white men on my shelf. There's allowances, but it's like, I think it's fine, and that's part of the journey is when you realize, "Oh, I did something. Now I'm thinking about it." That's it. That's
Yeah,
all you really
and
have to
it's
do
also
is consider.
journeys can be there's this one that I love. So, like, Alicia Keys stopped wearing makeup. I'm sure we all know, right? And she was very public about it and blah, 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 and all this stuff. And then, like,
Yeah.
she was at some award ceremony and she was wearing lipstick. And of course, I want to say, I know it was a white man. And I want to say it was Adrian Brody, who's the man who was Halle Berry by kissing her on stage, right?
Right, right, right.
And so he says to Alicia Keys, he says, "Oh, I thought you didn't wear makeup anymore." because she was wearing lipstick, and she just looked at him and she said, "I'm Alicia Keys. I do whatever the fuck I want."
Yeah, I thought you weren't shut up. Shut
Like
up.
she was doing a thing as a part of her journey, and it's still also completely up to her if,
Like, what
like
did you think
kind
was
of
gonna
what she
happen?
wants to do. And the
You
just
want
the
her to answer
policing
to
of
her?
other people's journeys, I thought was just
Oh,
so
shut
white
up.
and silly.
And this is why we don't listen to men over here. Not that they don't have anything valuable to say ever. And just like I say that, I obviously have white men who subscribe to my Patreon, who listen to me, who have submitted things, who I you just have to know that it's, include
But
yourself
it's
or don't.
still I think it's the "why am I talking" that you're talking about, right? And I think that, like, not for nothing, white men, followed immediately by white women, need to be asking themselves that the most, And I try to look at that and be like, am I saying things that other people have said before, or am I actually adding new stuff, right? Because I do
Right.
think, like, with this book on all American fascism, I'm trying to show a thing that I don't think other people are doing in quite this way. Like
Wait,
I'm
are you calling
obviously
it are you calling it all American fascism?
an all American fascism. Yeah.
I like that because I just have so my dad would always tell this story about how he educated this white man this one time. My dad did love a good like, and then the white guy joined in story, but whatever. Jamaican from Nicole as well. But he would always say, I taught this guy, like he said, oh, someone was talking about a candidate for a job and he was talking on the phone. He said, he's an all-American candidate, he's an all-American guy. And my dad told him, that means white, right? All American means white. You just said that without saying that. And he was just very proud of himself. He said, I didn't really think about that because you wouldn't say that about a black candidate. He's all American. And this was years ago, but it's so true. So when you just said all American, I was like,
Yeah.
because
And plus, then I get to go, it's American. A.
like that.
But yeah,
It's American.
basically, like, I'm just so tired of people being like, oh, this is Germany. Oh, this is, whatever other country badness, and just being like,
Yeah.
no, this has always been here. This has
It's
always been
America,
like when
baby.
I look at the Puritans, right? I haven't even traced it all the way through yet. That's a project I'm going to do. But I know, absolutely know, that like my ex-husband, the white supremacist, and his Texas Baptist family, like that's the 400 years later of the Puritans. Like I know that.
That's why I like this design here, this because this is a triangle at the top that just mimics the whole thing. So that's why I had like MLMs, cults. It's all based on the same kind of structure and manipulation and narcissism. So I'm gonna have just the top is just gonna be the
Yes.
narcissist. And it'll be like the 8 pillars of caste, which I did found out that there's pillars. Didn't know that. I mean I did because I read it, but 15 tenets of white supremacy, and then I'm gonna make the 9 narratives of the narcissism, and I'm gonna work that up here,
Nice.
right? Like, it's gotta
Nice.
have an alliteration.
Oh, that might be your book.
I think so,
Or
because
at
that's
least
like
like the structure, how yeah, you come up with your
it's the
9
structure, and then the
things.
system is within it.
That's how I did Culting of America. Like that's how I broke it down. It was like I'm going to explain these 10 things to you in uber depth and then show you how it matters.
Yeah, because it
Yeah,
repeats,
I
and if
like
we
that.
can catch it, just like with narcissism and cults, being informed about what it can feel like, what it can look like, sound like, because the beliefs will be different, but the systems will be the same.
Yeah.
Because there's no
That's what
creativity in
people
whiteness.
like. I think one of the most important things that I got out of studying cults was understanding that like all coercive control is the same. Like all these structures are the same. Ultimately, they are the same, which is
Right.
super important because that means we can pick out the patterns and like the details. Like, I do not know the details of the theology of Jehovah's Witnesses, except that they don't
Right.
celebrate birthdays. But I know that me and Jehovah's Witness babies, like we have so much in common. And like
Mhm.
getting to that language of that common experience underneath it, like that is super valuable. And then that's
I
going
think
to
that's how
tie
you crack it
into
too.
all of this stuff. Ooh, there's a book party that I'm going to. I'm going to bring you a copy next week in New York. I forget
Yeah.
the title of her book, but her name is Soraya Shamali, and she wrote a book about rage, women's rage, and
Ooh,
she wrote a
I
book
love that.
about the lie of resiliency, of individual resiliency. And now she has, just a year later, mind you, a book coming out about divesting from toxic masculinity and like the patriarchy.
I
And
love that.
I think that will be, and she's not
Oh, that'd be
white.
aw
I think that'll be good for your
Yeah, I figured the
future
name I
book.
mean, the name gave me
Yeah,
some edge.
as we probably
No,
knew.
that'd be
Um,
that's great. I love because anger is always assigned to, like, men, and they're allowed, and it's just, like, given place, but white women,
that's
they
it.
also
It's
were, like,
called something. The
against it.
power of women's rage. It's so good. Oh yeah, it's called Rage Becomes Her. So it's a really
And oh, nice, and in hood feminism, I did a reading, there's a video, I made a video on TikTok, it comes around sometimes, that I read about anger and where its place is and what we can do with it, but it's just like, you can't just be angry or just be rageful. Because look, now you got that's what men do, and then they're like, "We're happy, so let's destroy stuff. Rage." What? Calm down.
And like anger is supposed to be a warning that tells you something's wrong or that something that you're being mistreated. And then it's like you still have to deal, like anger is the symptom, and
Right.
part of,
There's a reason. You love
yeah.
reasons for so many things, but you forget yours. Like, there's things happening within you, but that's because of the whole mind control of this culture of like, no, you're supposed to do for survival, but it's like serving survival. You always have to be showing and suffering, but silently and holy stuff, harmony, and then die. And then people, I've noticed that a lot actually, of like, well, this person's dead now, white people. This person's dead now, so now I can talk about it.
Now we say, and we only say nice things.
Or even to say bad, like both. It's like, or this person was really abusive, but now I can talk about it because they're dead. It's like so they didn't have consequences. There's this weird protection. What are we protecting and why? Reputations. Since Black people have
Wow.
never been able
Yeah.
to have a reputation
No, you're
or
definitely
or
breaking,
character defamed.
not breaking my brain, but when I was writing Uncultured, my first book, I heard from a bunch of cult survivors like, oh, I could never write a book until my parents were dead.
Yeah,
And
what
that's exactly because you're not trying to have the hard conversations. And then
right.
also, I think that is true for white women. I think like a lot of the white women that I talk about that are like, I think would be your key audience, but they're not actually necessarily willing to divest of those relationships or even to just explore them. Like one of the things I say is like, it turned out like I got to keep my mom and I got to keep my army mentor, even though I wrote these like critical searching books.
Mhm.
But I didn't know that, right? Like I still had to be willing to do it, to go on the journey. And like I was so grateful that my mom decided to, sort of come along with me. But I still had to be willing to like lose her if I was going to criticize the system that she raised me in. And I just
Yeah.
think that's where the line comes for a lot of women who like start doing this work thinking that they want to divest from whiteness and white supremacy, but not understanding that like that's going to bring everyone. So like when I started researching divesting from patriarchy and how that influenced me, right? Like my husband was by definition going to be brought along that journey. And it did
Yeah,
cause
yeah,
some hostility and some friction in the
yeah.
beginning, and then
I remember you
we
saying
just
that,
didn't try to avoid the
but
conflict. We dealt with it, we talked about it, and,
exactly.
like, now he's on that journey too. But I wouldn't have known that if I wasn't willing to, like, have the hard conversations and deal with some of the conflict. And also
Right,
just be
and
like, I'm going to do this. Because I think there's a power. If you are someone who's loved by someone else, because that's ultimately what happened with my husband. I was like, babe, I'm not like, I read up to 60 books a year. All of them change me. And I'm sorry, but I'm not stopping that for you. And my challenge was like, keep up on the journey. And I think that, like, if you're someone that loves a person, like, you might be willing to go on that journey with them, but you don't know that. And they don't know that. if you're just avoiding it because it would cause conflict.
Right, and to me, it's like, what kind of relationship then do you have? If that's what you're fearing that your own growth and knowledge will destroy a relationship, that's something to look at too, and maybe I
But
get
that
that you don't
is
want
the idea. But that is the idea, I have to say, especially in the deconstruction world. And it's like the people who are deconstructing, like we understand what we're doing and the journey that we're on and why we're making these choices. But the people that aren't willing to do it, they're just like, you're being hateful. You're just trying to drag everyone down, like they
but
think it's
see
this very all or nothing game.
yeah,
Like, if I wanna dig into the ways I was abused as a child, that means I don't want you as my parent anymore, That's not a
right.
given. Most of us are ready to explore what those circumstances were and what our parents thought they were doing and what they're but you have to be willing to go on that journey, and I literally had this conversation with my mom about my dad, and it was the first kind of big public thing I did was a TED Talk, and I asked her what he thought, and she was like, "I don't know if he's watched it." And she said, "Do you want me to ask him to?" And what I said was like, "Look, I'm willing to have some hard conversations, but they're going to be hard conversations because we're really going to have to talk about the the ways that he treated us when we were kids." And
Yeah.
it was just like we all kind of assessed that nobody really wanted to have that hard conversation, basically, in that case.
Yeah, and I don't know that that's necessarily the first thing, right? So I do think, like, a lot of white people tend to think their anti-racism journey is mostly gonna be about converting their family to be not racist. And you skip the step where you address your own first, and then the beauty that comes from that will radiate and generate curiosity, in my opinion. I do think a lot of white people are looking for a
Yeah.
perfect plan for what to do when you make a scene because what about if we didn't do that? What if you tried something different than what you've already done? Like, I feel
The
like people come to
hypothetical
me thinking
harms, right?
more of the same, right? They think this is exactly what it's going to do, and I'm going to yell and what am I doing? Have I caused I've been focusing mostly on positive interactions and ways that you actually benefit from it, and if you talk about that, that will generate more curiosity versus scolding people. Like, I don't know what you think is happening because look at how I'm talking to you. That's how I want you to talk, one, about yourself, to yourself, around other people. It will just do. Like, our conversations have a lot to do with how you were able to see Taylor Swift for who she was. Now, I saw that the whole time, right? Did I feel the need to tell you? No, I didn't even think it just happened, right? It just happened because I'm talking to you, you're talking to me, I'm dissecting. I don't think that much about Taylor Swift. But because we have these conversations and systemically things appear once you start to see them, let other people are smart too. Like racist, there's just like they're so dumb. They won't understand if I tell them black and white thinking has to do with black and white. I don't like how we think about other people like that. And it's about you first. It's not about
Yeah.
your family. And I do think often those people, there's this thing that white people do. They say, I cut off my racist family members, da 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 da, right? And I realize, I think what they did is cut off their narcissistic family members and they also happen to be racist. You didn't cut them off because they're
Because they
racist.
were racist. Yeah.
You cut them off and they're racist. So
You
then when
cut
we
them off
say,
because they didn't wanna be on this journey with you for a number of reasons, probably.
right. And so, like, don't talk to me about their racism as if I'm supposed to be proud of you now for cutting off a narcissist. That's your personal life. Do that. But, like, that doesn't make them less racist because you cut them off. And so they're still out here with black people being racist. So it just doesn't, it's just not a
Yeah.
talking point to bring to black people. And because
I
when I tell
think
you, well, who's going to do it? You're like, how could you tell me to talk to this terrible person? Fair, but they're not terrible because they're
yeah,
racist to you. They're
right.
terrible to
Yeah,
you,
it's
and
like,
they
well,
happen
they're
to be
not
racist.
hurting you with their racism, so we're the ones
Right.
that need to talk to them. Yeah.
So it's
And I
it's like,
also I think it's
don't bring it
this
up to
thing
me.
about intrinsic motivation. And I think this goes back to the Puritans too. Again, right? Like you weren't working hard and being perfect because you wanted to go to heaven, because you wanted value. You were doing it for everyone else to know that you were
Right.
good. And I think we still have that. And I think it's like understanding that like you're on this journey for you, which doesn't mean you're not going to convert people, because also the best way to convert other people is with your stories of how you realized things, you know. And that's
Yeah,
also for any white women listening right now, like I have found that that's the least, oh gosh, I don't want to use the word dangerous, but like that's the least like risky way to bring things up, is just being like, hey, in my journey, you know, like I went on this journey to cut out the word guys, or I went on this journey to only read Black authors for 2 years so that I could see the contrast, you know, and just like it's
that's it.
really hard for people to criticize it if you're talking about your journey and what it did for you. And maybe they will have a similar crack in the brainwashing if you share it like that, which is the exact same advice we give people about cults. Like the best way to get someone to
Exactly.
notice the coercive control in their own life is to see it in another narrative, you know?
Right, and I think that's why maybe the men of women thing hit so hard for white women, because they're like, they already accept men as harmful. And I'm saying,
Mhm.
"Okay, now okay, okay, so you see that.
Yeah. And
Now
now that's you.
this version," you know? And that's just like how I realized corporate America felt like a cult when Steve Hassan did his asking, like, "If you have to do this, if you have to do this, if you have to do this." Like I said, I don't even think that had anything to do with the bite model. I don't think I like the bite model anymore. I don't think I care about it. I just like that he asked questions that had to do with a different cult, and it applied to mine. That we can do across the board. We can
Yeah.
say, in my experience, I wasn't able to feel that, or I was hyperventilating on Sundays. They felt like I was going crazy, but I never had to tell someone I'm smart before. You know, like I'm just saying, I have a white mom, I'm black, I have these experiences with white women. That's all I'm doing. Right? This is what black women will say based on this, my experiences. And I hope that white women take that and hear that. Right. But there's also this whole, like, if it don't apply, let it fly that white women have been adapting from Blackness. I say, "Hold on, it applies." Like, I don't like it actually anymore from white women. What, have they never heard, "If it don't apply, let it fly"? I don't know, guys. I feel like, hold on, you're pause again. It's more like, "I'm not one of those. Okay, I'm not one of those. Okay, I'm not one of those." I would rather hear moments like what you said with your husband where you are one of those, where you do that thing and you go, "I said I wouldn't do that and I caught myself." That means you are interrupting a pattern, you're seeing the pattern. Because if you're still in the position of, "Oh, I'm not that, okay, nope, I don't know about that. Nope. All right, I'm not touching hair. Great. Whew, phew, huh, relief, relief, relief." Why are you so relieved? Like, what did you think this was? A test? Because you're failing it. Also, if you thought it was a test, you need to think, okay, what are the things I do? Where does this resonate with me? On either side, maybe identify with me and say, okay, what's the man version of this? But instead, you're just going like, I'm not one of those. I don't tan. I accept my hair the way it is. I don't go blonde, never been blonde. Actually, I was blonde and I dyed it black. Like, I that wasn't
Also, I'm calling, I don't know any white woman that accepts her hair the way that it is.
no, no, because if you, and if you have to say it, you ain't it. So
You
to
don't,
me,
yeah.
your comment is the sign this was for you. So if you have to say, if you don't apply, let it fly, that means it applied. If you're activated, good. Like, that's what I'm
It's
kind
like
of getting thrown by. They're like,
it's
"I'm
like
activated bad."
today I made this video where someone was like, "Have you heard of this group my brother's in? It's giving me the creeps. They keep joking that it's a cult." And I'm like, "No, don't like," right? Like and the way I explain this is like
White people don't know how to joke.
when we have a good group experience, we don't think to relate it to a cult.
No.
Right? Even someone whose job is to relate things to cults. I have never come away from a super energizing group experience and been like, is that a cult? Because that's the
No.
opposite of like that thing, right? And so it's just
God,
like,
white people's jokes need to be studied. They are literally never like, "What is it? Is anyone laughing?" Or do they just go, "Whoa!
no, that's
That's
why they
not
have the
laughing."
laugh track.
Right, because it's a joke. Cult. That's not funny. That's not
It's
even
not funny.
funny.
This every I get why people ask me, like, they'll be like, "Have you ever thought about starting a cult? Have you ever?" And I'm like,
That's
why
another
do you
white joke.
think that the
That's a white
victim
joke.
of one of the world's worst cults is like a person that wants to pal around and make cult jokes? Like, I like to make jokes with other cult babies about the that we
Mm,
experienced,
mm.
but I don't want to like just make fun cult jokes with you, especially
Yeah,
about
and
good
they don't
cults. Like,
consider that. That's interesting.
no.
Yeah.
No, they don't. Because that's
No.
usually what I always push back with. I'm like, "Why?" I either say why or I'm just like, "No, I'm not the abused cult baby that wants to joke around with you about this."
Because you're not it's because of the white people, obviously. But, like, in, Thinking Fast and Slow, they talk about this acronym, for what you see is all there is, right? Like, there's this assumption what you see is all there is, and that's a big part of, like, one of the fundamental flaws of economics, right? But I've also realized with white women, it's what you share is all there is. So, you're not on here as or on here, on TikTok or anywhere on a platform as a traumatized cult survivor, so you're not coming trauma first forward in their way, in the white way that they do.
Right.
So, like, when white women would explain to me why men are so scary, white women are the men of women. How dare you compare me to a man? Do you know what men will be blood on their hands and men will zero acknowledgement that I might have been victimized by a man before and still had this because I'm not coming on and saying, as a that's what white women do, or autism, or whatever, neurodivergence. Because I'm not leading with my intro that gives you all my stats and labels, there's nothing for them to hold on to, so they just assume you wouldn't. This is ha ha fun times. We're talking about cults. You're chill, you're cool, but this is like black people treatment, you know? Yeah, black people, you're unserious. That doesn't mean we don't have that distress. Our distress tolerance is just like you said, like the overregulation is real.
Did I tell you this thing I just found out that, like, Brazilians have the highest levels of anxiety in the world and take the most medications for it? Which is crazy because Brazilians are famous as happy people and being, like, publicly very bubbly, and I
Well,
think it's kind of that exactly what you were saying, that, like, yeah, that's because they also live in a country that has never had land reform, that has 70% of its people living below poverty, that is, never had a government to rely on, that has always had to just live in joy as resistance and do that out loud, and, like, all this stuff that you don't see up
yeah, there's
front,
an
and I was like,
honesty.
yeah.
There's just like when you already know you're the scapegoat, there is no, well, if I just do a little more, if I just try a little harder and show them, it's more show them
Yeah.
that I
So
am a good.
so here's what's interesting. So so black women, I think, know that they can't ever be, right? Like the skinny white woman.
Yeah.
There seems to be a lot of situations of brown women trying to play that game. Let's use Usha Vance
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's
as a
why
person right
BIPOC never
here,
sat right with black people. The term
Yeah.
BIPOC has never, ever sat right. One, what's with white people making letters? People into letters. Yeah, cut it out, right? But like black people and people of color are completely different groups.
Yeah.
You're just saying not white. Not everyone not white is the same. There's such thing as a model minority. I mean, you can't win. You might as well join Black Side. Black community will
Yeah.
embrace you. To me, I've been thinking
You
this
can't
phrase
win as
like
a white
black
woman
and
either.
right, and like so right. You don't want that, but especially if you've immigrated, like a lot to do with even black immigrants or first generation. Like if that person hasn't experienced life as a black American, there is a different understanding, and they're given messages about Black Americans being lazy and not working and being ungrateful, always complaining, "Don't be like them, don't be like them," right? It's there, and you have to stand out and be just a little different, and you show yourself. That's why a lot of Black I learned that in business school. I didn't know. I thought Black people were Black people. So I got to business school, and there were, African students, and then there were a couple of us Black students, and the African students didn't wanna be part of the present, didn't wanna go Black forward. I wanted to be Black forward because I was like,
Yeah.
"No." But it's just there's so many ways, like, yes, Black women are the scapegoat, but of course, some of us, we're not a monolith.
Well,
I
and
believe
I think that, but that's also why I think it's important to call it anti-Black racism in the
yes,
US, because like that's
right.
a very, very specific thing.
Mhm. Anti-Blackness is the reason why all of this happens. That's not yeah, because that's why caste was so good because and going in terms of conditional care and talking about it away from racism because that was created by white people, this term and, you know,
Yeah.
you get to, "Well, I'm not racist, I'm Mexican." But you don't look that
Well,
what
even
do you what?
the thing you said about the letters, like that was interesting for me to follow Latin with the Latin community, right? Because
Mhm.
white people went, well, it's a gendered language and gendered languages are bad. So we're going to say Latinx, which does not work in Latin languages. And the Latin speaking community was like, please let us come up with our own thing. And they did, which is to use an E, right? So it's Latin, not Latina or Latino, right? Like it's something which is the
Mhm.
neutral way. Like there is already a neutral way in that language. It took those people to come up with it and be like, this is what we want to be called, not this like white people idea of it.
Right. It's like, I would like to be free, you know?
Did I ever
I
tell
honestly
you
don't even care, but Jesus.
this story? You'll like this story. Okay, so I'm in Brazil. When I was like 25 years old, this family that I nannied for in college like took me with them on their family vacation. So I'm in Brazil with this Indian family that does not speak Portuguese. And so naturally we're speaking English, right? And so we're at this restaurant and they're asking me to explain the menu to them. And they're like, what's this? What's X burger? You know, on the menu it says X burger. And I'm like, I have no idea, but it looks to me from the description that this is a hamburger. Like, so let's just order it, right? And so like, okay, we want three X burgers. And so then I turn to the waiter and I say in Portuguese, okay, então eu quero três cheeseburgers. The way we say the letter X in Portuguese is
Ah,
and so it was cheeseburger. And as soon as they said it like that, I knew exactly what it was. And it's a very Brazilian thing to like take American words and do this thing. But yeah, it was just
now I
such an
know.
interesting thing of like if you're looking from the outside, you're gonna be like, this doesn't make any sense. What is even me, who already
Right.
had the perspective, already had the knowledge that X is
Mhm.
pronounced as cheese, was looking at it in English with my white lady brain going, "No, I don't get it."
That's so interesting, and that's, like, such an analogy in a way for this work. It's like you can know all the parts, but sometimes it's the action and doing it and interacting and practicing with it and saying it that goes, "Oh." Just like
Yeah,
with
if I'd
music,
never
you can
turned and tried to order in Portuguese, I never would have figured that out. Like, if I
you just
just
feel like, "Here,
pointed and been like, "We want this,"
yeah,
I
can we
never would
have
have.
one of these?" And you would've been fine. Right? That would be your privilege, I guess. I don't know. But because you had the information, you now understand a different level of what they're trying to say. You can appreciate also the funniness of their naming. Whereas before you were just like, I got a good burger. You don't even know. Interesting name too. And there's a whole thing there. So it's like, that's what learning about anti-blackness could do. And that's how I view it. I'm always like, no, it's connection, not correction. But I feel like white people are
Mm.
so correction oriented. Y'all love correctional officers, and to come in and go, "By the way, you said this, but it's really this." Oh, get out. You know, like, unless it's actually helpful, because there are times it's very rare, though, that a white person correcting someone willing to come and share something with you, and the first thing you do is because they think that's how you communicate. I've had people say, "I loved everything in her video. I didn't know what else to say, so I just corrected this one part." The knitting, with the knitting thing, they loved my whole point about intersectionality and, you think Hank Green made a bad video about knitting because he didn't know knitting? Think about now how white women make videos on stuff and they don't know anything. And we don't say anything ever because 1, correction is not in our nature. 2, you're not gonna listen. So many reasons, right? And then they come on that video to just go like, "Well, he did disparage knitting. He said it's boring and blah, blah, blah." And someone goes, "Okay, so you missed the whole video?" No, no, the video was great. Everything she said was on point. So I just felt that, like, do you know what a disservice you're doing to yourself if this is how you interact with people? I don't understand it. So to any white women who do this, I'm not saying you're a bad person, but stop it. Stop.
I've noticed this with myself with the Taylor Swift stuff. Someone will be saying something and I'll be like, in theory, I agree. But actually, and I just know now to not
Hey,
continue,
you just can't.
right? To be like,
Or just do
no,
it to yourself,
I
that's
can
fine.
engage with the whatever of it with not and like yes, this is personality type, but I also think this is whiteness. And like this is something both my husband and I had to learn is like the correctoring, as we call it, especially if you're a neurodivergent. So you're coming off wrong to people anyway, and you know a lot of stuff. So like he and I, our whole lives, like, I actually had to learn that popping into someone's conversation to correct what they're saying is not a great way to be invited into a conversation, if that makes sense.
Right. But I think even with that, there's nuance because it depends,
But
right?
I
When you're
just
not
also
in
think,
this
like,
like white judgment correct, like that's the culture you're in, is in controlling culture. So anytime you butt into correct, like it's their commandments, their demands, they're like weird. But in community, if you were genuinely in a room with people having a special interest conversation and you knew something that they said wrong, they might actually want to hear it. Like that's why I said it's not 100%. There are times people go, this is where the phrase actually comes from, but I'm so, or whatever, like it doesn't matter, but here's some extra info. Great. But like if I say I don't like the phrase hanging over my head now that I think about it or that I hear it, I just say it. You don't need to tell me Greek mythology. I
and I
don't
also think, like,
I don't want it.
yeah, like, who is this person to you for you to spend kind of like this
Exactly.
time correcting? That's why I like
Mm,
your connection thing, where it's like, so I've said this to people before where I'm like, thank you, but no creator wants critical feedback from someone whose name they don't recognize, and like I have been called in very nicely by my audience before and I don't get offended. I used to jokingly say like, "Oh yeah, I own a 9-year-old and she blah blah blah." And somebody messaged out to me and they're like, "I'm sure you don't mean to say that you own your daughter and I know you're being funny, but think about this," right? And I was like, and it was somebody who I recognized, right? So like I know parasocial relationships are parasocial, but it's like when I feel I have a connection with you, I'm much more likely to take your well actually into account
mhm.
versus when you're a
You
random
understand
person.
intent. Right? There's like this blank canvas thing that white people think that everyone should just be treated equally. I just heard it as I said it. Everyone should be treated equally. And I should be allowed to it's my right to come in and say whatever I want. It's a public forum. If she doesn't want the comments, then she should turn her comments off. Blah, 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 blah. Shut up.
Forum thing is driving me crazy. Like, it's not a public forum. It is my
It's literally
page.
not.
And
It's
I am
literally
not your
not.
government. Like,
And
shut up.
and and even if it was, so you're just an asshole? Like, okay. What point are you proving? I can. I know.
Yeah, you can. And then I can say, that's
And
the
then I
other
said,
thing.
get
I
out.
always keep saying, like, normalize our ability to respond to questions any way we want. Because, like, maybe you don't know why that infuriated me, and maybe you need to, you know? Like,
Ask you a question? No. Because why would you ask me a question? I only have one choice, and that's what I think about the marriage and adoption thing, like proposals, the whole in front of other people in public and will you marry? These are weird. These are questions that are demands and commandments and, like, coded and culturally coercive, all that stuff. But, like,
Even that, the emphasis on it needs to be a romantic surprise versus you need to have had an adult conversation about who you wanna spend your life with.
spend a large amount of money and, like, don't so we're not supposed to talk about this beforehand? But it's supposed to be okay, what? And don't embarrass him, but also this is the story everyone wants to it's just like the whole
Yeah.
thing. And
And
when you think about
not
the
to mention,
feminine,
like, he's supposed to build your perfect romantic proposal without ever talking to you about it. Like, that's
he's
silly.
supposed to talk to my friends behind my back, and then my friends are supposed to lie to me, and everyone's lying, and I'm supposed to act like this is great, even though now I can't trust anything, and I'm an excellent pattern recognizer. And if I ruin the surprise, it's me, it's my fault. So Santa Claus all over again? I'm done.
Picked
Okay?
out I picked out my own ring, and people were so weird about it. And I literally, like, I came home from Afghanistan, and one of the first things I did was pick out my own ring because I knew where this was going. And I
You're
was
gonna have
like,
to wear it.
yes. And I was like, I love this man, but if he proposes to me with a solitaire, like, it's not going to be okay. And people were so weird about it. Like, really, that being surprised versus a multi-thousand-dollar thing that you're ostensibly going to
I mean,
wear for
I'm
the
saying.
rest of your life, like, you shouldn't get a say in it. Like, oh, he should
He
know
don't
you
wear
well
rings.
enough to know. Like, my husband currently has known me for 11 years and he would never buy me a piece of clothing. Like,
Why would you can buy your own like, it's a ring unlike any other and then the whole diamonds
I
of
said,
it
I
all, right?
also
Like
did pay for the ring myself, but I couldn't even broach that topic because then people
look,
would really freak out. But yeah,
I'm a very
I
like,
just,
non-traditional is my existence, and I'm starting to get really come to terms with this, realizing like, okay, yes, it sounds a bit like a sitcom, my whole upbringing, if you just like list out random things. And I thought, so is everybody. Because I know people like you and me, like I'm just like, everyone's got a weird life. And that's valid, but there is something to it. But it's just I don't remember the point I was gonna go with that. But I do the rings. Thousands of dollars. He's lying, your secrets, get your nails done, everybody cameras. There's a sneaky photographer, and but are you happy? Does anybody care? Is that anything to do with it? A ring unlike any other ring. Oh, the diamonds, the whole manufactured value of a diamond that they just sold us is just a rock. The fact that you can't tell the difference between a real and a lab grown, but people know, uh, right? And pressure makes diamonds. Diamonds are just rocks. You know, maybe we don't need any of this. I just think about pressure makes diamonds sometimes as like hustle culture. They're scamming you. Hustle is a scam. It's when you lie and say, I'm not that good. And then and you get into it like, like when people hustle playing pool, it's a scam. They scam you. That's the same thing. It's a big pyramid scheme of scams. And friends, friend gets worked up when I get worked
yep,
up. But
pyramid scheme. It's never going to pay off.
1%
Yeah.
is successful and they're miserable up there at the top. And they're sunburnt, like we've discussed. They were not prepared for the altitude and Mount Everest and stuff. I don't know, all that.
You get
The whole
sunburned.
thing is
You
bad,
get more sunburned when you get closer to the top.
right? And then they're like, it's great, and you're tan, and now they're tan, but bubbly and pepperoni skinned. I've seen that too.
But
People
still a
get
white
addicted to
person.
it. But still white, even though they'll come up to me and go, "Hey, look, I'm darker than you." And every black person hates that. Any white person who has done that, just know the black person did not find it funny. I don't know what the point of that is. I met an Italian guy, and that's what they look. Put your arm up here next to mine. All right, you worked for that. I might die because of mine, but that's great. Let's compare. Let's compare Italian man who owns this business and me. Just random things. I do think I'm gonna come out with something for white people, just like the do's and don'ts. Now that I realized just how often it happens, rhetorical questions, stuff like that. Let's
It's
not,
also just not random things, though. It's like everything, which is how we started this, which was like, I it's funny to me that people push back against that concept so much too, because to me it's just so easy. Like, oh, if we say that there's a racist system in the United States, then yeah, it probably affects everything. And these
Yeah.
days, like every time I get in a new topic, I can be like, okay, what's sexist about this? What's racist about this? Right? Like, that's why this show is fun, because we literally just started off talking about your new blouse that you made and then had a 90-minute conversation about racism. Like,
It's always there, and as
it's
I
that
just when I was
easy and
writing,
that complicated.
it's simple, right? I mean, it's not always easy to, like, deal with, I guess, but it's easy to see once you accept it. And I think I wrote somewhere, it's like, not in a conspiracy theory, everything's about race, but, like, reality, everything's about race. Breathe out, like, okay, so where is it? You know, you wanna find countries and found companies and all these things that are made up and make believe and believe in. Why don't you just, like, deal with the actual things? Oh, racism, right there. There's black people and there's white people. It's right there. You know, black and white people exist, and I wanna work with something. My mom also, because we were talking about this, I remember having multiple books about being biracial, just because, like, there were them, and that's great. So I never thought it was weird. I thought, like, okay, some of us are biracial. There was a book that was called Black, White, Just Right, that I was thinking about, like, I'm black and white, right? But I'm always black and never white. So there's something going on there with, like, never white and the anti-identity, and white is never stuff. Right? Their pride is in never something. Never I never drank
I
Mormons.
just
I've never had coffee.
I just feel like the title of your memoir needs to be Always Right, Never White. Growing up a little
Love
neurodivergent
that.
biracial girl.
With my whiteboards. Yes.
Always
Always
right,
right,
never
never
white. Look, I'm good with titles, I'm telling you.
that was good. I was, like, right there. I because I right there with white supremacy, I've been saying calling white supremacy, I really
Yeah.
like it because, yeah,
But I
we
also think, like, so much of your memoir is gonna be you just feel something is off and you don't know how explain it, but then you find that as you trust yourself, as you, like,
yes,
go
and it's
forward
just
in
like
this work.
uh-huh, and so much of it has been interacting with random white women and going, "What?" But having my original white woman whisperer who actually accepted the things I said, and it's funny because I literally whispered to her, and that's one of her favorite stories of me at the eye doctor, like, and then she would tell him because I don't want to talk to white men. I talk to my safe white women, who I thought was everybody, but it's not. But I really like that because she also would tell me like, I'm not arguing with you. I'm just explaining why I'm right. You know, and she thought that was me. Because when I am, I am.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, never
I
white
think
for sure.
that's one of the
Oh, I love it.
things. Yeah. And so because, like, yeah, because that is supposed to, like I was saying the other day when somebody was like, "Rebecca isn't even a black woman." I was just like, "Shut up." It's
Yeah, because 'cause
just
I've been white
not.
before. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
that's not
yeah,
how it
because you
works.
get to choose. No, like, that's not that's part of the thing to talk about. You are equally black and white, and yet that's not how America sees you.
That's
Like, that's yeah,
not a choice at
not a
all. I've
choice.
always black, never white, and that's community versus group thinking too, right? Because there is no in and out of the black community. You just, I'm black.
It's so
Hello.
good. I'm thinking of, like, all the themes. All right, I think you just started writing your memoir today, and now I'm just gonna be on you, and I'm gonna be like, "Rebecca."
And I've been on my way to it. I don't have it right with me, but I'm just like my story. Maybe okay, maybe my story does deserve a story. I've always kind of been with the we all have weird stuff. Maybe I found a group that it really could connect to this kind of through line of
Yeah.
what is
Well, I
going
also
on
think
here.
it's a process, like, when I started writing Uncultured, my co-writer said to me, like, "We don't always know the best stories of our own life to tell, to, like, make the point that we're trying to make." And I think that because you do this work as a storyteller, meanwhile, opposite one story that both of my co-writers tried to cut out of my book because they didn't like how it fit or how it made me look. And I was like, no, I need that to be in there because I tell this to people all the time and I connect it to things. And it was this story where someone tells me I'm not as different as I think I am, and it led to all this like,
Mhm.
you're not special, right? Like all of this stuff that I talk about now. And it's like, I think anyone has a good story worth writing, but you just have to understand what themes you're connecting into that. Like, so you can have the most interesting story in the world and it can be a bad memoir because you didn't connect any themes to it. You just told us what happened to you.
Yeah, you lived.
You and I do the opposite of that. Like we plumb our same stories over and over and over again for value. And so
Yeah,
you'll be able to do that in a book. So anyway.
yeah, and it's
I'm
like, why am I
excited to
talking,
see
right?
you
I do
next
that for
week
me
in
too.
purpose.
I
I
know, I'm
just
so
oh my god.
excited.
You could have a very early on chapter could be called Why Am I Talking? Like that could be your first chapter of like being told to like talk less and blah blah blah. And yeah. Oh my gosh.
Mhm.
It's so good. And you never know, like it's like so when I got to high school and I went to enroll in high school, which of course I thought I could just show up with a passport and a social security card and say, I'm here to enroll in school, and they would enroll me. And in fact, they told me, no, you don't exist. Right. And like
Uh,
this, you don't exist. This random phrase someone said to me, it like turned into a whole theme in the book where I'm trying to prove I do exist and I don't want to exist. And then, like all of this
yeah.
stuff. So I think that's the good of telling stories. And that's why like anyone can have an interesting story. Really, everyone's life is interesting, but it's just like,
Right.
how are you connecting that story to the so what? And
Right, like,
you
what am I
are
talking about?
already
Why am
great
I
at that.
talking? Who am I trying
Yep.
to talk about? Yeah, yeah.
It's all right
It's
there.
exciting.
All
It's
right.
not I
This is
really like that.
probably a good time for us to wrap up. Our next episode is going to be a very special episode because Rebecca and I will be in the same place together.
In the same location.
Super, super fun. Super
I'm very
excited.
excited.
And I'm going to bring you some advanced reader copies of the book. So
Shit.
thanks everybody for following. Please like and subscribe. Tell your white lady friends. And please go find Rebecca on Patreon, her stuff on the tenets of white supremacy. And promise you will change your mind if you're not there yet. Thank you so
Do
much.
it. Thanks.